A missed train at Grand Central strands Leah overnight, exhausted, broken-heeled, and unaware her seatmate is a jilted groom escaping a high society scandal. One night, one bench, and a connection that could change everything. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The fluorescent lights of Grand Central Station buzzed overhead as Leah Morris sank onto the hard wooden bench. Her feet throbbed after 12 hours in nursing shoes, made worse by the broken heel that had cost her those critical 5 minutes. The last train home had departed, and here she was, stuck until morning. Perfect end to a perfect day, she muttered, sipping the lukewarm coffee she'd bought from the only vendor still open. At 41, Leah had learned to handle life's disappointments, but tonight tested her patience. Her phone was dead, her purse strap had snapped halfway through her shift at Meadowbrook Nursing Home, and her demanding boss, Mrs. Winters, had kept her an hour late. Again. She pushed a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear and rolled her shoulders to ease the tension. All she wanted was a hot shower and her quiet apartment, neither of which she would get anytime soon. The station had emptied out, leaving only a few stragglers, a janitor mopping the far end of the terminal, a security guard doing his rounds, and now a man in a tuxedo who walked with purpose before suddenly stopping, as if he'd forgotten where he was going. Leah didn't mean to stare, but something about him caught her attention. Maybe it was the contrast between his formal attire and the slump of his shoulders, or the way he suddenly looked lost in the vast, empty space of the station. He turned, scanning the nearly empty benches before his eyes landed on hers. For a moment, he hesitated, then walked over and sat down beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. Up close, she could see he was handsome in a weathered kind of way, probably mid-40s, with salt and pepper hair that had been carefully styled but now had fingers run through it too many times. His bow tie hung undone around his neck, and despite the expensive cut of his tuxedo, he looked as defeated as she felt. Neither spoke at first. He just leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and let out a sigh so deep and raw that Leah could almost feel it in her own chest. She returned to her coffee, not wanting to intrude. They were just two strangers sharing a bench, each with their own troubles. After several minutes of silence, he spoke, his voice quiet but clear in the empty station. "I didn't miss a train," he said, staring at the floor. "I missed a wedding." Something in his tone made Leah turn to look at him. Their eyes met, and suddenly the distance between them seemed both vast and non-existent. "Your own?" she asked before she could stop herself. He nodded, a sad smile touching his lips. "My own." Leah's exhaustion momentarily faded. "I'm sorry," she said, and meant it. "Don't be," he replied. "Apparently I had it coming." An announcement echoed through the station, something about a security check at the north entrance. When it faded, the silence between them felt different, less like two strangers and more like two people who had somehow found themselves in the same boat. "I'm Nathan," he said, offering his hand. "Nathan Dorian." "Leah Morris," she replied, shaking it. His hand was warm and his grip firm but gentle. "So, Leah Morris, what's your story? Why are you sitting in Grand Central close to midnight?" She gave a short laugh. "Nothing as dramatic as yours. Broken heel, dead phone, missed the last train by 5 minutes. My boss kept me late at the nursing home where I work." Nathan nodded, seeming genuinely interested. "What do you do there?" "I'm the head nurse at Meadowbrook. Mostly elderly patients, some with dementia." She shrugged. "Not glamorous, but it matters." "I'd say that matters a lot more than most things," he said, his tone sincere. Leah studied him. Men in tuxedos didn't usually end up alone at train stations, especially not on their wedding night. "So," she ventured, "do you want to talk about it? The wedding, I mean." Nathan ran a hand through his hair again, messing it up further. "Not much to tell. I was at the altar. She sent a text to her maid of honor." He pulled out his phone and read, "I'm sorry, I can't." Classic, right? Like something from a bad movie. "That's harsh," Leah said, wincing. "The worst part," Nathan continued, putting his phone away. "I wasn't even surprised. Deep down I knew something wasn't right. I just didn't want to see it." Leah found herself wondering about this woman who had left him waiting. Had you been together long? 2 years. Not long enough, apparently. He straightened up a bit. The thing is, I don't think she ever saw me. The real me, I mean. She saw the CEO, the hotels, the lifestyle. Leah's eyebrows rose. Hotels? Nathan looked slightly embarrassed. I own Dorian Resorts. The name clicked into place. Leah had seen the ads for his luxury hotel chain, though she'd never come close to being able to afford a stay in one. Wow, she said. That's impressive. It's just a job, he said with a dismissive wave. A demanding one that takes up too much of my life. Probably part of why I'm sitting here with you instead of dancing with my bride. There was something refreshing about his honesty. No self-pity or bitterness, just simple truth. What about you? He asked. Married? Kids? Leah shook her head. Divorced 8 years now, no kids. She didn't add that the lack of children had been one of many points of contention with her ex-husband. These days it's just me and my cat Gatsby. Great name for a cat. He lives up to it, very charming and slightly destructive. They shared a smile, and Leah was struck by how easy it was to talk to him. From her purse, she pulled out a slightly squashed granola bar, her emergency dinner now that she'd missed her train. Breaking it in half, she offered a piece to Nathan. Dinner of champions, she joked. He accepted it with a grateful nod. Better than the catering I didn't get to eat. Thank you. They ate in comfortable silence, two strangers finding unexpected company in the middle of their separate crises. So, Nathan said after finishing his half, what's your plan now? Wait for the first morning train? That's about it. 4 more hours on this lovely bench. He glanced at his watch. My driver should be looking for me. I sort of walked out of my own reception. Phone's been buzzing non-stop, but I've been ignoring it. As if on cue, his phone lit up again. He looked at it and sighed. My brother. That's the 15th call. Maybe you should answer? They might be worried. Nathan hesitated, then declined the call. Richard's more worried about the PR nightmare than about me. Tomorrow's headlines will be all about how Nathan Dorian got left at the altar. Is that why you came here, to hide? He nodded. No press, no sympathetic looks, no damage control, just... He gestured vaguely at the empty station. Anonymity, movement. Somewhere that isn't that church or that reception hall full of people whispering about me. Leah understood the need to escape. Well, you picked a good spot. Not many people around at this hour. Except you, he said, his eyes meeting hers again. And I'm grateful for that. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. She felt a warmth creep into her cheeks and blamed it on exhaustion. So what's it like? She asked, changing the subject. Running a hotel empire. Nathan laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face. You know what's funny? I don't even like staying in fancy hotels. Give me a cabin in the woods or a quiet beach house any day. Really? I would have thought you'd love all that luxury. I appreciate quality, he clarified. But all the formality, the pretense, that's for the guests, not for me. My mother would be horrified to hear me say that. She raised me to appreciate the finer things. Is she still with you? Leah asked carefully. No, Nathan replied, his expression softening. She passed 5 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry, Leah said. My mum died last year. Heart failure. Their eyes met in shared understanding. It's hard, he acknowledged. Mum was always my biggest supporter, but also my toughest critic. She came from nothing and married into money. Never let me forget how privileged I was. She sounds like she kept you grounded. She tried. Did you know she used to make me volunteer at soup kitchens during school breaks? Said I needed to see the world outside our bubble? Leah smiled. My mum was a teacher, single parent. We didn't have much, but she always found ways to help others. Made me care packages to take to my patients, even when she was sick herself. She raised a good daughter, Nathan said softly. Leah felt a lump in her throat. What about your father? Workaholic, Nathan replied. Built the business from one small hotel to what it is now. Died when I was 28, and I took over. Been trying to live up to his legacy ever since. Is that what you wanted? To run the family business? Nathan paused, considering. I never really thought about what I wanted. It was always assumed I'd take over someday. Richard, my brother, he's the creative one, designs our properties. I handle the business side. But if you could choose anything, I'd probably travel more. Actually stay in places longer than a business meeting. Get to know the local people, the culture. He smiled ruefully. Ironic, right? I own hotels all over the world but never really experienced them. Leah nodded. I understand. I always wanted to be a painter, but she shrugged. Life happened, had to be practical. Do you still paint? Sometimes. Watercolors mostly. Nothing special. I'd like to see them sometime, Nathan said, then looked surprised at his own words. The statement hung between them, unexpected and full of possibility. Before Leah could respond, a well-dressed older man appeared, looking relieved. Mr. Dorian. There you are, sir. We've been searching everywhere. Nathan's face fell slightly as his driver approached. Frank, sorry for the worry. Frank glanced at Leah, then back to Nathan. Sir, your brother is quite concerned. There are reporters gathering. At your apartment, Nathan sighed, the weight of his reality settling back on his shoulders. Of course there are. He turned to Leah. I should go deal with this. She nodded, suddenly aware of how different their worlds were. Of course. He stood reluctantly. Leah, can I see you again? The question caught her off guard. Here she was, tired in a wrinkled uniform with a broken shoe, her makeup long worn off. And this man, this wealthy CEO who lived in a world she couldn't even imagine, wanted to see her again. I don't think that would be a good idea, she said softly. This isn't my world. Something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment, understanding. I don't want my world, he said quietly. I want the one we just made on that bench. The simplicity of his words struck her heart. But reality was setting in as Frank shifted uncomfortably nearby, a reminder of the life Nathan would return to. It was nice meeting you, Nathan, she said, holding out her hand. I hope things get better. He took her hand, but didn't shake it. Just held it for a moment. You too, Leah, thank you for seeing me, the real me. Then he was gone, following Frank out of the station, leaving Leah alone on the bench once more. She watched him disappear through the main exit, a strange emptiness filling her chest. She told herself it was for the best. Men like Nathan Dorian didn't belong in her simple life, and she certainly didn't belong in his spotlight world of wealth and scrutiny. Yet, as she settled back on the hard bench for the long wait until morning, she couldn't help wondering what it might have been like to say yes. Outside Grand Central, Nathan sat in the back of his car, staring at the illuminated building as Frank pulled away. He should have asked for her number, her address, something. But maybe she was right. Their worlds were too different. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that in those brief hours on a bench in an empty train station, he'd found something genuine that had been missing from his life for a long time. As the car merged into the late-night traffic, Nathan made a mental note to send flowers to Meadowbrook Nursing Home tomorrow. Not to pursue, just to thank her for being there when he needed. Someone most, but deep down he knew that a simple thank you wouldn't be enough. For the first time in years, he'd met someone who saw past his name, his wealth, his position. Someone who had shared her granola bar and her time when he was at his lowest. And somehow he knew this wasn't the end of their story. 3 days had passed since that night at Grand Central Station. Leah had managed to push the encounter with Nathan to the back of her mind as she fell into her normal routine. Early mornings, long shifts at Meadowbrook, microwave dinners, and falling asleep while watching TV with Gatsby purring beside her. But on Wednesday afternoon, as she was helping Mrs. Gonzalez with her physical therapy, Tina from reception appeared in the doorway. "Leah, there's a delivery for you at the front desk," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "For me?" Leah asked, surprised. "Can you sign for it? I'm with Mrs. Gonzalez right now." "Oh, honey, you're going to want to see this yourself," Tina replied with a knowing smile. Leah turned to her patient. "Would you excuse me for just a minute, Mrs. Gonzalez? I'll be right back." The elderly woman waved her off with a smile. "Take your time, dear. I could use a rest anyway." When Leah reached the reception area, she stopped in her tracks. The entire desk was covered with a stunning arrangement of wildflowers, not the typical roses or lilies, but beautiful meadow blooms in soft blues, purples, and yellows. "Oh my goodness," she breathed. "Who sent these?" Tina handed her a small envelope. "There's a card." Leah opened it with slightly trembling fingers and read the handwritten note. "Thank you for sharing your bench and your kindness when I needed. Hey, at most. If you ever want to continue our conversation, my number is below. No pressure, just gratitude. Nathan." Heat rose to her cheeks as she tucked the card away, aware of Tina and 2 other staff members watching her with curious expressions. "Someone special?" Tina asked, failing to hide her curiosity. "Just a friend," Leah replied, though the word didn't quite fit. What was Nathan to her? A stranger she'd met once, a man from a different world who had somehow connected with her in the middle of the night at a train station. "Must be some friend," remarked Martha, one of the other nurses. "Those flowers must have cost a fortune." "I need to get back to Mrs. Gonzalez," Leah said, avoiding further questions. "Tina, could you put these in the break room so everyone can enjoy them?" "Are you sure?" Tina asked, surprised. "They're for you." "They'll brighten up the room for everyone," Leah insisted, though part of her wanted to keep them all to herself. As she returned to Mrs. Gonzalez, her mind was spinning. Should she call him? What would be the point? Their lives couldn't be more different. "And yet, you're blushing," Mrs. Gonzalez observed when Leah returned. "Must be quite some flowers." Leah smiled, helping the woman stand. "Let's focus on your exercises, shall we?" But focus was hard to come by for the rest of her shift. Every time she passed the break room and saw those flowers, her mind returned to Nathan's face, to the genuine connection she'd felt with him on that bench. That evening, after returning to her modest 1-bedroom apartment, Leah took Nathan's card from her purse and stared at his number. Gatsby rubbed against her legs, demanding dinner. "What should I do, Gatsby?" she asked, scratching behind the cat's ears. "Call him? Pretend it never happened?" The orange tabby simply meowed and padded toward his empty food bowl. Leah sighed. "You're right. Food first, life decisions later. After." Feeding Gatsby and making herself a simple pasta dinner, she settled on her worn but comfortable couch and turned on the TV. She froze when the face on the screen was Nathan's. "Silent rumors swirling about why the wedding was called off," the entertainment reporter was saying. Sources close to Victoria Chandler claim she had concerns about Dorian's workaholic tendencies, while others suggest there may have been someone else. Dorian Hotel's stock took a slight dip following the news, but financial analysts say this is likely temporary. Leah quickly changed the channel, her heart pounding. This was Nathan's reality, his private life splashed across entertainment, news, his business affected by his personal decisions. How could she possibly fit into that world? She turned off the TV and picked up her phone, looking at his number again. Before she could overthink it, she typed a simple message. "The flowers are beautiful. Thank you. Leah." She hit send before she could change her mind, then set her phone down and tried to distract herself with a book. Less than 5 minutes later, it buzzed with a reply. "You're welcome. I hope they brightened your day like our conversation brightened mine." Leah smiled, then typed, "They did. I put them in the break room at work so everyone could enjoy them." His response came quickly. "That's exactly what I would have expected from you. Sharing the beauty." She felt a flutter in her chest at his words. "I saw you on the news just now. How are you holding up?" There was a longer pause before his reply. "Better than expected. The public drama is annoying, but I'm more concerned with figuring out where I went wrong." "What do you mean?" she asked. "I've been thinking about what you said, about our different worlds. You were right. The problem is, I've been living in a world I never really chose. Maybe it's time I did." Leah stared at his words, unsure how to respond. After a moment, she wrote, "That sounds like a big decision to make after being left at the altar. Don't you need time to process?" "Probably," he replied. "But talking to you made me realize something I've been ignoring for years. Would you have dinner with me? Just to talk. No pressure or expectations." Leah's thumb hovered over the screen. A simple yes or no question, yet the answer felt so complicated. "I don't think that's a good idea," she finally replied. "But thank you for asking." His response was immediate. "I understand. If you change your mind, the offer stands. Good night, Leah. Sleep well." She set down her phone, a mix of relief and regret washing over her. She'd made the sensible choice, the practical choice, so why did it feel like she'd just closed a door? that she might have wanted to walk through. Nathan sat in his penthouse office, staring at his phone. He hadn't expected Leah to say yes, but the disappointment still stung. His brother Richard entered without knocking, as usual. "Please tell me you're reviewing the Singapore proposal," Richard said, dropping into the chair across from Nathan's desk. "Not now, Richard," Nathan replied, setting his phone aside. Richard eyed him carefully. "The board meeting is tomorrow. They'll want answers about how this personal situation is being handled." "By personal situation, you mean my fiancée leaving me at the altar?" Nathan's voice was sharp. "Tell them it's being handled privately." "Nothing about your life is private, Nate. You know that." Richard picked up a financial report from the desk. "Victoria's already giving interviews, painting herself as the victim. Says you were never emotionally available." Nathan laughed bitterly. "That's rich, coming from someone who broke up with me via text message to her maid of honor." "The public doesn't know that part," Richard pointed out. "All they know is what they see in the tabloids. We need to control the narrative." "I don't care about the narrative," Nathan said, standing up to look out at the city lights. "Let her say what she wants." Richard studied his brother with growing concern. "This isn't like you. You always care about the company image." "Maybe that's the problem," Nathan said quietly. "Maybe I've cared too much about image and not enough about what's real." "What does that mean?" Richard asked, setting down the report. Nathan turned to face his brother. "Do you ever wonder if we're living the lives we actually want, or just the ones Dad mapped out for us?" Richard's expression hardened. "Don't start this again. We built something great, something important. Did we? Or did we just follow a blueprint that was handed to us?" Nathan ran a hand through his hair. "When was the last time you took a vacation, Rich? When was the last time either of us did something just because we wanted to, not because it was good for business?" "Where is this coming from?" Richard demanded. "Is this about Victoria?" "No," Nathan said, thinking of Leah's tired but genuine smile. "It's about something else entirely." Richard stood up, agitated. "Look, I get that you're going through something, but we have responsibilities. The Singapore deal will still be there next week," Nathan interrupted. "I need some time." "Time? For what?" Nathan hesitated, then said, "To figure out what I actually want." Richard's face softened slightly. "Take the weekend, clear your head. But Nate, whatever this is about, don't make any rash decisions. Too many people depend on you." After Richard left, Nathan returned to the window, looking out at the city. Below, somewhere out there was a nurse named Leah, who had shown him more genuine kindness in 1 hour than he'd experienced in years in his privileged world. He picked up his phone again, scrolling to his assistant's number. "Carol, I need you to find out everything you can about Meadowbrook Nursing Home," he said when she answered. "Programs, funding, needs, everything." "Is this for the charitable foundation, sir?" Carol asked. "No," Nathan replied. "This is personal." The next day at Meadowbrook, Leah was helping Mr. Winters with his lunch when Mrs. Patel, the administrator, appeared at the door. "Leah, could I see you in my office when you're finished here?" she asked, her expression unreadable. "Of course," Leah replied, a knot forming in her stomach. Was she in trouble? Had something happened? She finished feeding Mr. Winters, then made her way to Mrs. Patel's office, mentally reviewing anything she might have done wrong. To her surprise, when she entered, Mrs. Patel was smiling. "Leah, please sit down," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "I've just had the most remarkable phone call." "Oh?" Leah said, still nervous. "Yes, from the Dorian Foundation." Mrs. Patel leaned forward. "They want to make a substantial donation to Meadowbrook for our art therapy program, the one you've been trying to get funding for all year." Leah's mouth fell open. "The Dorian Foundation? As in, Dorian Hotels, yes," Mrs. Patel confirmed. "Apparently someone there was very impressed with our facility and specifically mentioned your dedication to patient care." Leah's cheeks burned. "Mrs. Patel, I need to tell you something. If you're about to say you know Nathan Dorian personally, the flowers in our break room already suggested as much," Mrs. Patel said with a knowing smile. "Though I admit I'm curious how a nurse from Meadowbrook came to know one of the wealthiest men in the city." Leah sighed. "It's not what you think. We met by chance. I didn't ask him for anything." I never suggested you did, Mrs. Patel assured. Her? In fact, his representative specifically said the donation comes with no strings attached. They're simply impressed with our work here. That's very generous, Leah said carefully. It's life-changing for our patients, Mrs. Patel corrected. This is enough to fund the art therapy program for 3 years, plus upgrades to the activity room. She studied Leah's troubled expression. You don't seem happy about this. I am, Leah insisted. It's just complicated. Mrs. Patel nodded understandingly. Well, complicated or not, Mr. Dorian will be visiting the facility tomorrow to discuss the details. I'd like you to show him around, since this was your program proposal originally. Leah's heart skipped. Tomorrow? But unless there's a reason you can't? Mrs. Patel asked, raising an eyebrow. Leah wanted to protest, to explain why this was a bad idea, but how could she refuse when this donation would help so many patients? No reason, she said finally. What time should I expect him? That evening, Leah paced her small living room, Gatsby watching her with curious eyes. He's forcing me to see him, she told the cat. Using the nursing home to what? Get my attention. Yet even as she said it, she knew that wasn't fair. The art therapy program had been her passion project for years. She'd written countless grant proposals, all rejected due to budget constraints. If Nathan was using his resources to make it happen, wasn't that a good thing? But why? They'd shared one conversation on a bench. Why would he do something so significant? Her phone buzzed with a text message. I hope you don't mind that I'm visiting. Meadowbrook tomorrow. This isn't about us. I was genuinely impressed by how you spoke about your patients. If you're uncomfortable, I can work with someone else. Leah bit her lip, then replied, It's fine, I'll give you the tour. Thank you for supporting the art program. It means a lot to our patients. I'm looking forward to seeing it, he responded. And to seeing you again. Leah didn't reply to that last part. Instead, she went to her closet and began frantically searching for something appropriate to wear. Everything seemed either too casual or trying too hard. She settled on her best pair of black pants and a light blue blouse that her friend Melissa always said brought out her eyes. This is ridiculous, she told her reflection in the mirror. It's a professional meeting, not a date. But the butterflies in her stomach suggested it might be something in between. The next morning, Leah arrived at Meadowbrook an hour early, her hair carefully styled and her makeup subtle but present. She checked on each patient in her section, making sure everything was perfect before Nathan's arrival. Someone's nervous, teased Tina, when Leah rearranged the magazines in the waiting area for the 3rd time. I'm not nervous, Leah insisted. I just want everything to look nice for a potential donor. Uh-huh, Tina said with a knowing smile. That's why you're wearing your special occasion perfume on a Thursday. Before Leah could respond, the front doors opened and Nathan walked in. He was dressed in a casual but clearly expensive dark blue sweater and khaki pants, a far cry from both the rumpled tuxedo she'd first seen him in and the power suits he wore in photos online. Their eyes met across the reception area, and for a moment, everything else faded away. He smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes, and Leah couldn't help but smile back. Good morning, she said, walking over to greet him. Welcome to Meadowbrook. Thank you for agreeing to show me around, he replied, his voice just as she remembered it. Up close, she could see the dark circles under his eyes, partially hidden by his tan. He looked tired but somehow more at peace than he had that night at the station. Mrs. Patel is waiting in her office, Leah said, gesturing down the hall. She's very excited about the donation. Before we meet with her, Nathan said, lowering, his voice slightly, I want you to know that this isn't some elaborate scheme to see you again. I meant what I said in my text. Your passion for your patients stuck with me. This is something I would have done regardless. Leah studied his face, seeing nothing but sincerity. I believe you, she said softly. And thank you. This program will make a real difference. I'm glad, he replied. Now, lead the way. I want to see everything. As they walked toward Mrs. Patel's office, Leah was acutely aware of his presence beside her. Despite her reservations, despite all the reasons they shouldn't connect, she couldn't deny that something about Nathan Dorian, made her feel more alive than she had in years. And judging by the way he looked at her when he thought she wouldn't notice, she suspected he felt the same way. The tour of Meadowbrook went better than Leah could have imagined. Nathan was genuinely interested in the facility, asking thoughtful questions and taking time to speak with patients who were eager to meet a visitor. In the current activity room, a small space with worn furniture and limited supplies, Nathan listened as Leah described her vision for the art therapy program. "Many of our patients with dementia struggle with verbal communication," she explained. "But art gives them another way to express themselves. We've seen amazing results, even with our limited resources." "Show me," Nathan said, his interest evident. Leah led him to a hallway where patients' artwork was displayed. "Mrs. Gonzalez painted this one. She barely speaks anymore, but look at the detail, the emotion in this landscape." Nathan stepped closer to examine the painting. "It's her childhood home in Puerto Rico," he said. "You can feel how much she misses it." Leah looked at him, surprised by his insight. "Yes, exactly. How did you know?" "My mother used to paint," he explained. "She taught me to look beyond the image to the feeling behind it." He turned to Leah. "This is important work you're doing here." "It's a team effort," she said modestly. "But it was your idea," he pressed. "Your passion project." Before she could respond, one of the residents wheeled himself over. "Leah, is this your boyfriend?" asked Mr. Wilson, a former art teacher with a mischievous streak. Leah blushed furiously. "No, Mr. Wilson, this is Mr. Dorian. He's donating to our art therapy program." "Well, why isn't he your boyfriend?" Mr. Wilson asked bluntly. He looks at you like my Harold used to look at me." Nathan chuckled as Leah's embarrassment deepened. "Mr. Wilson has a very active imagination," she explained. "And good taste," Nathan added with a warm smile that made Leah's heart skip. By the time they finished the tour, meeting with Mrs. Patel and discussing the details of the donation, it was nearly lunchtime. "Thank you for showing me around," Nathan said as they walked back to the reception area. "I'm more convinced than ever that this is a worthwhile investment." "Thank you for making it possible," Leah replied sincerely. Nathan hesitated, then said, "My schedule cleared up this afternoon. Would you have lunch with me? Just lunch, nothing fancy. There's a diner around the corner." Leah knew she should say no. Keeping things professional was the sensible choice. But after spending the morning with him, seeing his genuine interest in her work, her resolve was weakening. "Just lunch?" she asked. "Just lunch," he confirmed. "Two people sharing a meal and a conversation. No strings attached." Leah glanced at her watch. "I have an hour break at 1 o'clock. Nathan's face lit up. "I'll meet you here at 1 then, as..." He left. Tina gave Leah a not-so-subtle thumbs up from behind the reception desk. "Just lunch," Leah said firmly, though she wasn't sure if she was trying to convince Tina or herself. But as she returned to her duties, she couldn't help but feel that whatever was happening between her and Nathan Dorian was anything but simple. And despite her best efforts to remain detached, she was beginning to think that maybe, just maybe, their worlds weren't as different as she'd believed. At exactly 1 o'clock, Leah stepped out of Meadowbrook's front doors to find Nathan waiting for her. He'd changed his sweater for a simple button-down shirt, making her wonder if he'd gone home to freshen up or if he'd brought a change of clothes. "Right on time," he said with a smile. "Hungry." "Starving," she admitted. "I was too nervous about your visit to eat breakfast." As soon as the words left her mouth, she wished she could take them back. Admitting she'd been nervous revealed more than she'd intended. If Nathan noticed her discomfort, he didn't show it. "The diner's just around the corner. I hope you don't mind walking." "Not at all," she replied, falling into step beside him. "It's a nice day." The May sunshine warmed them as they walked, a comfortable silence settling between them. Leah was acutely aware of the curious stares from passers-by. Nathan Dorian was recognizable, especially in this part of town, and here she was, an ordinary nurse walking beside him like it was the most natural thing in the world. "People are staring," she murmured. "Let them," Nathan said easily. "I'm having lunch with a friend, nothing newsworthy about that." Friend. The word felt both right and not enough at the same time. The diner was a local spot called Marge's, red. Vinyl booths, checkered floors and the smell of coffee and grilled onions in the air. Leah had eaten here countless times, but never with someone like Nathan. To her surprise, the waitress greeted him by name. "Mr. Dorian, good to see you again. Your usual booth?" "Thanks, Clara," he replied warmly. "How's Tommy doing in college?" "Made the dean's list last semester," Clara beamed. "Thanks for asking." As she led them to a corner booth, Leah gave Nathan a questioning look. "You come here often?" she asked once they were seated. "At least once a week," he admitted. "Best tuna melt in the city." "But you own 5-star restaurants," Leah said, still confused. Nathan shrugged. "And they all serve food that looks better than it tastes. Here, it's the opposite." He handed her a laminated menu. "Plus, no one expects Nathan Dorian to be at Marge's Diner. It's one of the few places I can just be myself." Leah studied him across the table, realizing there was much more to this man than his public image suggested. "What?" he asked, noticing her stare. "You're not what I expected," she said honestly. "Is that good or bad?" "Just surprising." Clara returned with water and took their orders, a tuna melt for Nathan and a chicken club for Leah. "So, Nathan," said once Clara had left, "tell me something about Leah Morris that I don't already know." Leah took a sip of water, considering. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," he said simply. "But let's start with why nursing, why Meadowbrook?" "That's a long story. I've got time." Leah traced a water droplet on her glass. "My grandmother had Alzheimer's. I was 15 when she was diagnosed, and I watched her slowly slip away. The nurses who cared for her, they made such a difference, not just for her, but for our whole family. I wanted to be that person for someone else." Nathan nodded, his eyes never leaving her face. "And Meadowbrook?" "I started there right out of nursing school. It was supposed to be temporary just until I found something better paying. But then I met Mrs. Winters. She was one of our first patients with early onset Alzheimer's. She'd been an art teacher, and even as her memory failed, she could still paint. It made me realize there were ways to connect with patients beyond traditional care." She smiled at the memory. "I've been there 12 years now. No regrets about the path not taken." "You mean the painting?" Leah shook her head. "I still paint. Just for myself now." "It's enough." Clara arrived with their sandwiches, and the conversation paused as they began to eat. "You were right," Leah said after her first bite. "This is amazing." "Told you," Nathan replied with a satisfied smile. "Some things are better without the fancy presentation." "Speaking of presentation," Leah ventured, "how are you really doing with everything that happened?" Nathan's expression grew more serious. "Honestly, it's been difficult, but not for the reasons people might think." He set down his sandwich. "I'm not heartbroken about Victoria. I'm more disappointed in myself for not seeing the truth sooner." "What truth?" "That we were together. For all the wrong reasons," he explained. "She wanted the lifestyle, the status, and I..." He hesitated. "I was following a script. Successful businessman, beautiful socialite wife, perfect power couple. It's what was expected." "By who?" "Everyone. The board, the press, my family legacy." He shrugged. "I've spent most of my life living up to other people's expectations. I'm good at it. So good that I stopped questioning whether any of it was what I actually wanted." "Until now?" Leah asked softly. "Until that night at Grand Central," he corrected. "Something about sitting on that bench with you. No pretenses, no expectations. It was the most honest conversation I'd had in years." Leah felt a warmth spread through her chest. "I felt that too," she admitted. "But Nathan, our worlds are still so different. I'm just a nurse with a mortgage and a cat, and I'm just a man who's trying to figure out what matters," he replied. "When you look at me, what do you see?" "I see someone kind," she said without hesitation. "Someone who listens, who notices things others miss, who's searching for something real." His eyes softened. "That's all I want to be. Not the Dorian name or the business or the bank account. Just that." Their hands were resting on the table, inches apart. Slowly, Nathan moved his until his fingers just barely touched hers, not holding, just connecting. "I'm not asking for anything complicated, Leah. Just a chance to see where this goes. No pressure, no timeline." Before she could respond, the bell above the diner door jingled, and a man with a camera entered, scanning the room. His eyes widened when he spotted Nathan. "Mr. Dorian," he called out, raising his camera. "Any comment on Victoria Chandler's interview? Is it true you're already seeing someone new?" Nathan's face hardened as he protectively moved to block Leah from the photographer's view. "No comment," he said firmly. "Please leave. This is a private lunch." But the photographer had already snapped several pictures. "Who's your friend, Mr. Dorian? The public wants to know." Clara appeared, hands on her hips. "Sir, we don't allow photography in here without permission. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "Just one more shot," the man insisted, trying to haggle around Nathan to see Leah. "That's enough," Nathan said, standing up. He turned to Leah, his expression apologetic. "I'm sorry about this. We should go." Leah nodded, suddenly understanding the reality of Nathan's life in a way she hadn't before. This wasn't just about different worlds in theory. It was about paparazzi and public scrutiny and a complete lack of privacy. Nathan quickly paid their bill and led Leah out the back door of the diner, through the kitchen where the staff nodded to him familiarly. "Does this happen often?" Leah asked as they hurried down the alley behind the restaurant. "More since the wedding, that wasn't," Nathan admitted, guiding her toward a black car waiting at the end of the alley. "I'm so sorry, Leah, this isn't what I wanted for our lunch." "It's okay," she assured him, though her heart was pounding. "It's just surprising." Frank was waiting with the car and opened the door for them. "Where to, Mr. Dorian?" "Back to Meadowbrook, please, Frank," Nathan said, helping Leah into the car. As they pulled away, Leah caught a glimpse of the photographer running down the alley, still trying to get a shot of them. "I should have been more careful," Nathan said once they were safely inside the car. "I thought Marge's would be safe. They've always respected my privacy there." "It's not your fault," Leah said. "But this is what I meant about our different worlds. Your life is public property, mine isn't." "And you want to keep it that way," Nathan said, understanding in his voice. "Wouldn't anyone?" she asked. I like my simple life, Nathan. I like my privacy. I like being able to go to a diner without ending up in the tabloids." Frank kept his eyes on the road, clearly trying to give them as much privacy as the car allowed. "I understand," Nathan said quietly. "And I'd never ask you to give that up." He ran a hand through his hair. "Maybe this was a mistake. I didn't think through what it might mean for you." The defeat in his voice tugged at Leah's heart. "It wasn't a mistake," she said, surprising herself with her certainty. "I just need to think about what this means, where it could possibly go." Nathan nodded, and they rode the rest of the way to Meadowbrook in silence. When they arrived, he walked her to the entrance. "I meant what I said, Leah. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. Take all the time you need to think. I'll respect whatever decision you make." "Thank you," she said, genuinely touched by his understanding. "For everything. The donation, lunch, just all of it." He smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'll be in touch about the program. Details." As he turned to leave, Leah impulsively reached for his hand. "Nathan." He looked back, hope flickering across his face. "I had a nice time today," she said, despite the dramatic ending. This time his smile was genuine. "So did I." She watched him return to the car, waving once before heading back inside. The reality of what had just happened was sinking in. She'd gone to lunch with Nathan Dorian, been photographed with him, possibly just created a story for the tabloids. Yet somehow the panic she expected to feel was tempered by something else. Something that felt suspiciously like happiness. The next morning, Leah was awakened by her phone buzzing repeatedly. Bleary-eyed, she picked it up to find a stream of text messages from Melissa, her best friend. "Call me immediately. Leah Morris. Are you dating a billionaire? Why am I finding this out from TMZ and not you?" Beneath the messages was a link. With a growing sense of dread, Leah clicked on it and found herself staring at a grainy photo of her and Nathan at Marge's diner, his hand nearly touching hers on the table. The headline read, "Dorian rebounds, billionaire's mystery woman revealed." She groaned, burying her face in her pillow. Gatsby meowed indignantly at being disturbed. "This is a disaster," she told the cat, who blinked at her indifferently. Her phone rang. Melissa calling. She considered ignoring it, but knew that would only postpone the inevitable. Taking a deep breath, she answered, Before you say anything, Leah began, it was just lunch. Just lunch? Melissa exclaimed. With Nathan Dorian, the man whose wedding. Disaster has been all over the news. Leah, there are photographers outside my apartment building asking if I know you. What is going on? It's a long story, Leah sighed. And I have to get ready for work. Can we talk later? Oh no, you're not getting off that easy. I'm coming over tonight with wine, and you're telling me everything. And I mean everything. After promising to provide all the details that evening, Leah hung up and cautiously went to her window. Sure enough, there was a van parked across the street, with a man holding a camera. Her phone buzzed again, a text from Nathan. I just saw the article. Leah, I'm so sorry. I've already spoken to my lawyer about getting it taken down, but I'm afraid the damage is done. Are you okay? She typed back. There's a photographer outside my apartment. His response was immediate. Tell me your address, I'll send security. Leah hesitated. Having security outside her modest apartment building seemed even more attention-grabbing than a lone photographer. No need for that. I just need to get to work without being followed. Let me help, please. She bit her lip, then typed her address. 20 minutes later, as she was getting dressed, her phone buzzed again. Black car outside your building in 5 minutes. It's Frank. He'll get you to work safely. Leah looked out her window and saw the photographer was still there, now joined by a second one. Making a quick decision, she grabbed her purse and headed downstairs. Frank was waiting exactly where Nathan had said he would be. He opened the door for her, shielding her from the photographers who immediately started snapping pictures and calling out questions. Ms. Morris, Frank said politely once they were in the car. Mr. Dorian asked me to apologize again for the intrusion and to assure you that he's doing everything possible to minimize the media attention. Thank you, Frank, she replied, feeling strangely like she'd stepped into someone else's life. This is all very new to me. If I may, Frank said, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. The attention usually dies down quickly if there's nothing to feed it. A few days of no comment and they move on to the next story. I hope you're right, Leah said, watching the familiar streets of her neighborhood pass by. Everything looked the same, yet somehow different, as if overnight her world had shifted on its axis. When they arrived at Meadowbrook, Leah was relieved to see no photographers waiting. Frank escorted her to the door. I'll return at the end of your shift, he said. Mr. Dorian thought it best if I drive you home as well. That's very kind, but please, Ms. Morris, Frank said gently, it would ease Mr. Dorian's mind. He's quite distressed about the situation. Leah nodded, touched by Nathan's concern. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate it. Inside Meadowbrook, Leah wasn't surprised to find that news had already spread. Tina waved a tabloid newspaper as soon as she spotted her. You have some explaining to do, she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Billionaire Dorian and our very own Leah Morris. The whole staff is buzzing. It was just lunch, Leah insisted, feeling like a broken record. Nothing more. That's not what these pictures suggest, Tina teased, showing her the paper. Leah took it and looked at the photo spread. There was the shot from the diner, plus images of them leaving Meadowbrook together, and even one of Nathan helping her into his car. Out of context, they did indeed look like a couple. This is ridiculous, Leah muttered, handing back the paper. We barely know each other. Sure, honey, Tina said, clearly not convinced. That's why he donated a small fortune to our art program and why you're suddenly arriving in his private car. That's not... Leah began, then stopped. How could she explain something she barely understood herself? Mrs. Patel saved her from further questioning by appearing in the reception area, her expression serious. Leah, a word please. In the privacy of her office, Mrs. Patel got straight to the point. I'm assuming you've seen the tabloids. Leah nodded, bracing herself for a reprimand. Normally, I wouldn't involve myself in an employee's personal life, Mrs. Patel continued. But when it affects Meadowbrook, I have concerns. I understand, Leah said. I never meant for any of this to happen. If you're worried about the donation... Actually, Mrs. Patel interrupted. Mr. Dorian called this morning. He wanted to assure me that the donation is unconditional and that the foundation has already transferred the funds. He also apologized for any disruption this attention might cause. "Oh," Leah said, surprised. "Well, that's good." "Yes, it is," Mrs. Patel agreed. "However, I'm more concerned about you, Leah. You've been a valued member of our team for 12 years. I'd hate to see you distracted or stressed by this situation." "I can handle it," Leah assured her, more confidently than she felt. "My patients will always come first." Mrs. Patel nodded. "I know they will. Just be careful, Leah. Men like Nathan Dorian live in a different world. A world with different rules and expectations." "I'm well aware of that," Leah said quietly. "Good." Mrs. Patel handed her a stack of files. "Mr. Wilson has been asking for you all morning. Something about wedding plans." Despite everything, Leah laughed. "He's incorrigible. Indeed, and he's not the only one excited by the news. Several patients have already asked if they can meet your boyfriend next time he visits." Leah groaned. "He's not my boyfriend." "Perhaps not," Mrs. Patel said with a small smile. "But he looks at you like he wishes he were." Throughout her shift, Leah tried to focus on her patients, but her mind kept returning to Nathan. She checked her phone during breaks, finding several more messages from him. "How are you holding up? Is there anything else I can do?" "I've spoken to my PR team. They're releasing a statement saying we're just friends." She appreciated his concern, but each message reminded her of how complicated things had become. By the time her shift ended, she was emotionally exhausted. True to his word, Frank was waiting outside. As he drove her home, Leah noticed he took a circuitous route, presumably to lose any following photographers. "Frank," she said hesitantly, "how long have you worked for Nathan?" "Almost 15 years, Ms. Morris. You must know him well." Frank's eyes met hers briefly in the mirror. "Better than most, I'd say." "What's he like?" "Really like, I mean, when no one's watching." Frank considered his answer carefully. "Mr. Dorian is a private person, despite his public persona, generous to a fault. Loyal, works too hard and relaxes too little." He paused. "If I may be so bold, Ms. Morris, in all the years I've known him, I've never seen him as genuine as he was with you yesterday." Leah absorbed this, unsure how to respond. The press, the lifestyle, none of that is what matters to him. Frank continued. "He cares about making a difference, about the people behind the projects, like your nursing home program. That's the real Nathan Dorian." "Thank you, Frank," Leah said softly. "That helps." When they arrived at her apartment, Leah was relieved to see no photographers waiting. Frank insisted on walking her to the door. "Mr. Dorian asked me to give you this," he said, handing her an envelope. "Good evening, Ms. Morris." Inside her apartment, Leah opened the envelope to find a handwritten note. "Leah, I've been thinking about our conversation at lunch, before the interruption. You asked where this could possibly go. I don't have a perfect answer, but I know I want to find out. I understand if the media attention has made you reconsider. My life comes with complications I never wanted or asked for, but please know that I meant every word I said. I'm not looking for anything except a chance to know you better. If you're willing, I'd like to show you my world, not the public version, but the private one, the real one. I have a small cabin upstate. No press, no interruptions, just peace and quiet. We could go for a day or just a few hours. Your choice, your terms. No pressure, just an invitation, Nathan P.S. If you'd prefer we remain just friends, I'll understand and respect your decision completely." Leah read the note twice, then set it aside as Melissa knocked on her door. Wine, bottle in hand as promised. "All right," her friend said, sweeping in and heading straight for the glasses. "Start from the beginning and don't leave anything out." Over the next hour, Leah recounted everything. The missed train, the conversation on the bench, the flowers, the donation, the lunch that ended with photographers. "Let me get this straight," Melissa said, refilling their glasses. "You met a gorgeous, kind billionaire who was left at the altar. He sent you flowers donated to your passion project, and now he wants to take you to his private cabin." She shook her head in disbelief. "Leah, this is literally the plot of every romance novel ever written." "That's exactly why it's so unbelievable," Leah argued. "Things like this don't happen in real life, at least not to people like me." "Why not?" Melissa challenged. Because you're not some 20-something model? Because you work for a living? Leah, you're smart, caring, beautiful. Why wouldn't he be interested in you? Even if he is, Leah said, look at what happened today. Photographers, tabloids, that's his normal. It could never be mine. So what? You're going to walk away from a connection like this because it's complicated? Leah stared at her wine. I don't know what I'm going to do. Yes, you do, Melissa said softly. I can see it in your face. You like him, really like him. It doesn't matter what I feel, Leah insisted. Being practical matters, being realistic matters. Since when did you become so afraid of taking chances? Melissa asked. The Leah I know painted in the middle of thunderstorms because she loved the energy. The Leah I know drove cross-country to scatter her mother's ashes in the ocean because she'd promised, even though it terrified her to drive so far alone. This is different. Yes, it's different because for once the risk might actually bring you happiness instead of just fulfillment. Melissa leaned forward, taking Leah's hands. You spend your life taking care of others. Maybe it's time to let someone take care of you for a change. After Melissa left, Leah sat alone in her living room, the note from Nathan on the coffee table before her. Gatsby jumped onto her lap, purring loudly. What do you think, Gatsby? She asked, scratching behind his ears. Am I being practical or just plain scared? The cat bumped his head against her chin as if encouraging her. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her phone and typed a message to Nathan. I'd like to see your cabin, but just for the day. And you have to promise me one thing. His response came almost immediately. Anything. No more surprises. From now on, complete honesty about what I'm getting myself into. You have my word, he replied. And Leah, thank you for giving this a chance. As she set her phone down, Leah felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She was stepping into unknown territory, risking her heart and her privacy for a connection that defied all logic. Yet somehow, despite all the reasons to walk away, the thought of seeing Nathan again filled her with a warmth that no amount of practical thinking could diminish. Whatever happened next, she was beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, missing that last train home had been the best thing that ever happened to her. The morning sun filtered through pine trees as Nathan's car wound its way up the mountain road. Leah gazed out the window, watching the city fade into countryside, then forest. After a week of dodging photographers and fielding questions from everyone, from co-workers to her landlady, the peaceful landscape was a welcome change. We're almost there, Nathan said, glancing at her from the driver's seat. He'd insisted on driving himself today, leaving Frank back in the city. It's beautiful up here, Leah replied, taking in the view. How often do you come? Not often enough, he admitted. Once a month, if I'm lucky. More in the summer when I can work remotely. He pointed through the windshield to where the trees opened up. There it is. Leah wasn't sure what she'd expected when Nathan had described his small cabin, but the structure that appeared before them was both more and less than she'd imagined. It wasn't the luxury mansion she'd feared, but neither was it the rustic shack the word cabin had conjured in her mind. It was a two-story home built of warm cedar and stone, with large windows and a wraparound porch. Simple but beautiful, it blended into the surrounding forest as if it had grown from the landscape itself. This is your idea of small? She asked, a smile playing at her lips. Nathan looked slightly embarrassed. Compared to what most people expect from me, yes. My brother calls it my hermit house. He parked beside the cabin and came around to open her door. As Leah stepped out, the scent of pine and earth filled her lungs, and for the first time in days, she felt the tension leave her shoulders. No one knows about this place except family and a few close friends, Nathan explained as he unlocked the front door. No staff, no security cameras, just peace and quiet. The interior was as welcoming as the exterior, an open living space with comfortable furniture, a stone fireplace and shelves filled with books. Nothing about it screamed wealth or status. It was simply a well-loved home. I built a lot of it myself, Nathan said, watching her take it all in. The bookshelves, the kitchen table. My father taught me carpentry when I was young. Said every man should know how to work with his hands, no matter how much money he had. Leah ran her fingers along the smooth edge of a bookshelf. It's beautiful. You're talented. I'm adequate, he laughed. You should see my brother's work. He's the one with the real gift. He gestured toward the large windows. The deck has the best view. Would you like some coffee first? Or we could walk down to the lake. The lake sounds perfect, Leah said, after being confined to her apartment. And Meadowbrook for days, avoiding the press, she was eager to be outside. They followed a well-worn path through the woods, close enough that their hands occasionally brushed against each other, though neither made a move to hold on. The tension between them was palpable, not uncomfortable, but filled with unspoken possibilities. How have you been holding up? Nathan asked. With all the attention, I mean. Better now that it's dying down, Leah replied. Frank was right. They lost interest when there was nothing new to report. Though my 15 minutes of fame were interesting, did you know I've received 3 marriage proposals from strangers? Nathan stopped walking. You're joking. I wish I were, she laughed. One sent a poem, very creative rhyming of Morris with chorus. I'll have to step up my game, he teased, then seemed to catch himself. I mean, I know what you mean, Leah said gently, saving him from backtracking. The truth was, she'd thought about little else besides Nathan all week. Their lunch, his note, the possibility of something more between them. They reached the lake, a crystal-clear expanse surrounded by mountains. A small wooden dock extended into the water, with 2 Adirondack chairs positioned at its end. This is breathtaking, Leah said, following Nathan onto the dock. This is my favorite spot, he replied. I've solved more business problems sitting in these chairs than in any boardroom. They sat side by side, looking out over the water. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the gentle lapping of waves against the shore and the occasional call of a bird. Thank you for coming today, Nathan said finally. I know this past week hasn't been easy for you. It's been educational, Leah admitted. I never realized how exhausting it must be, living with that level of scrutiny all the time. You get used to it, he said, but you never really like it. Is that why you built this place, to escape? Nathan nodded. Partly, but also to remind myself of who I really am. Here I'm not Nathan Dorian, CEO, I'm just Nathan. I like just Nathan, Leah said softly. He turned to look at her, his eyes serious. Leah, I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About our different worlds. You were right. My life comes with complications that most people never have to deal with. Nathan, please let me finish, he said. I've had relationships that failed because the women were more interested in my lifestyle than in me. And I've had relationships that failed because I couldn't give them the privacy, the normalcy they deserved. He took a deep breath. What I'm trying to say is, I understand if this past week has shown you that my world is too complicated, too public for what you want. Leah studied his face, seeing the genuine concern in his eyes. Have you been working on that speech all week? A smile tugged at his lips. Maybe. Did it sound rehearsed? A little, she admitted, but I appreciate the sentiment. She turned her gaze back to the lake, gathering her thoughts. This past week has been a crash course in what your life is like. The photographers, the tabloids, the speculation, it was overwhelming. And yes, part of me thought, this is exactly why this can't work. Nathan nodded, his expression resigned, though he tried to hide it. But, Leah continued, another part of me kept thinking about that night at Grand Central, about how easy it was to talk to you, how real you were, and about how in all the years since my divorce, you're the first person who's made me feel seen, really seen for who I am. Hope flickered in Nathan's eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying that yes, our worlds are different. Yes, there are complications, but maybe what we found on that bench is worth figuring out how to navigate those complications. Nathan reached over, his hand finding hers. I would very much like to try, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Leah turned her hand to lace her fingers with his. So would I. For a long moment, they sat in silence, hands joined, looking out at the water. Then Nathan turned to her, his face open and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. There's something I need to tell you, he said. About Victoria. About the wedding. Leah tensed slightly. What is it? The truth is, I was relieved when she didn't show up, he admitted. I'd been having doubts for months, but I kept telling myself it was just pre-wedding jitters, that I was supposed to want this perfect society marriage. He shook his head. When I got that text saying she wasn't coming, my first feeling wasn't heartbreak. It was freedom. Why didn't you call it off yourself then? Leah asked. Expectations, Nathan replied simply. The Dorian name, the business implications, the press. It was easier to go along with it than to admit I was making a mistake. He looked down at their joined hands. I'm not proud of that. Thank you for telling me, Leah said softly. For what it's worth, I think it takes courage to admit when something isn't right, even if it takes a while to get there. Nathan squeezed her hand gently. You make me want to be braver, Leah. To live more. Honestly, I could say the same about you, she replied. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, they left the dock and walked the trail that circled the lake. Nathan pointed out his favorite spots, a clearing where deer often gathered at dusk, a twisted, old pine tree that had survived a lightning strike, a small waterfall that fed into the lake. I have something to show you back at the cabin, he said as they completed the circuit, something I've never shown anyone else. Curious, Leah followed him back up the path. Inside the cabin, Nathan led her to a closed door off the main living day. Area, my studio, he explained, opening it. Leah gasped as she stepped inside. The room was filled with light from windows on 3 walls, illuminating dozens of paintings arranged on easels and hanging on the walls. Landscapes mostly, rendered in bold strokes and vibrant colors. The lake at different times of day, the mountains in various seasons, sunsets that seemed to burn right off the canvas. Nathan, these are... She struggled to find the right word. Extraordinary. He looked embarrassed but pleased. They're just a hobby I started after my mother died. She always loved landscapes. Leah moved from painting to painting, taking in the raw emotion captured in each one. These aren't just anything. You have real talent. Coming from a real artist, that means a lot, he said. I'm hardly a real artist, she protested. I haven't painted seriously in years. Which is a shame, Nathan replied. I'd love to see your work sometime. Leah turned to look at him, suddenly seeing him in a new light. This successful businessman who secretly painted with such passion, who built furniture with his hands, who valued this simple cabin more than his luxury penthouse, he was nothing like what the world saw when they looked at Nathan Dorian. You're full of surprises, she said softly. Good ones, I hope. Definitely good ones. They prepared lunch together in the cabin's kitchen, a simple meal of pasta and salad, working side by side as if they'd done it 100 times before. The ease between them was striking, conversation flowing naturally from art to books to childhood memories. My turn to share something I've never told anyone, Leah said, as they sat at the hand-built table to eat. After my divorce, I applied to art school. Got accepted too. Nathan looked surprised. Why didn't you go? My mother got sick, she explained. I needed to be there for her, needed the steady income from nursing to help with her care. She twirled pasta on her fork. After she passed, it just seemed too late to start over. It's never too late, Nathan said. Not for something you love. Maybe, she conceded. But I found other ways to use that creative energy. The art therapy program at Meadowbrook, for instance. Speaking of which, Nathan said, Mrs. Patel sent me the preliminary outlines for the program expansion. It looks incredible, Leah. You've put so much thought into it. It's been my dream for years, she admitted. I can't thank you enough for making it possible. You don't need to thank me, he insisted. It was the right thing to do. Those patients deserve beauty in their lives. As the afternoon wore on, they moved to the deck, watching the sun begin its descent toward the mountains. A light breeze rustled the trees, and somewhere in the distance, a loon called across the water. I wish we could stay here, Leah said, voicing the thought before she could reconsider. We could, Nathan replied simply. She laughed. Some of us have to work tomorrow. Call in sick, he suggested with a mischievous smile. Say you've come down with a case of cabin fever. Terrible joke, she groaned, but she was smiling too. Seriously though, Nathan said, his tone growing more earnest. I meant what I said about taking time to figure this out. There's no rush. Leah nodded, grateful for his understanding. I think I just need to get used to the idea that there might be an us to figure out. It still feels surreal. For me too, he admitted, but in the best possible way. As evening approached, the reality of having to return to the city loomed over them. Leah found herself reluctant to leave this peaceful sanctuary to go back to the complications waiting for them in the real world. We should probably head back soon, Nathan said, clearly sharing her reluctance. The drive takes about 2 hours. I know, she sighed. Back to reality. Nathan took her hand. This is reality too, Leah. What we've shared today, this is as real as it gets for me. The sincerity in his voice moved her deeply. Without overthinking it, she leaned forward and kissed him softly on the lips. Their first kiss, sweet and brief, but filled with promise. When she pulled back, Nathan was looking at her with such tenderness that it almost took her breath away. I've been wanting to do that since Grand Central, he confessed. Me too, she admitted, but I was afraid. And now? Still a little afraid, she said honestly. But some things are worth being brave for. The drive back to the city was quieter than the journey up, but it was a comfortable silence filled with shared glances and occasional touches of their hands. As the lights of New York came into view, Leah felt a pang of regret at leaving their mountain sanctuary behind. What happens now? She asked as they approached her apartment building. When we go back to our separate worlds, Nathan took her, hand across the console. We create a new world, one that has room for both of us on our own terms. Is that even possible? I don't know, he said honestly, but I want to try. He parked in front of her building and walked her to the door. To Leah's relief, there were no photographers in sight. Thank you for today, she said, suddenly shy, for sharing your special place with me. Thank you for giving us a chance, he replied. Can I see you again soon? I'd like that, she said, meaning it. Despite all the complications, despite the differences in their lives, the connection between them felt too precious to walk away from. Nathan leaned down and kissed her again, lingering a little longer this time. Good night, Leah. Good night, Nathan. Inside her apartment, Gatsby greeted her with his usual demanding meow. As she bent to pet him, Leah realized she was smiling, had been smiling, in fact, most of the day. I might be in trouble here, Gatsby, she told the cat as she sank onto her couch. The kind of trouble that changes everything. The orange tabby jumped into her lap and settled in, purring loudly as if in approval. Over the next few weeks, Leah and Nathan carved out a relationship that existed somewhere between their two different worlds. Quiet dinners at out-of-the-way restaurants, walks in lesser-known parks, weekends at the cabin when their schedules allowed. There were complications, of course. The press eventually caught wind of their continuing relationship, but with Nathan's PR team running interference and their own determination to keep things private, the intrusion was manageable. Meadowbrook's art therapy program launched to resounding success. Seeing her patients respond to the creative outlet brought Leah a joy that rivaled her growing feelings for Nathan. And watching her in her element, passionate and dedicated, only deepened Nathan's admiration for her. One evening, as they sat in her small apartment sharing takeout and watching an old movie, Nathan broached a subject they'd been dancing around. I have to go to Singapore next month, he said. The resort project there needs my attention. How long will you be gone? Leah asked, trying to hide her disappointment. At least 2 weeks, he replied, maybe longer. She nodded, understanding this was part of his reality. I'll miss you. Come with me, he said suddenly. Leah looked at him in surprise. To Singapore? Nathan, I can't just leave my job for 2 weeks. I know it's asking a lot, he acknowledged. But you have vacation time saved up, don't you? And I thought it might be a chance to show you that we can make this work, even with the demands of my career. It was tempting, more than tempting. 2 weeks in Singapore with Nathan, seeing a part of the world she'd never expected to visit. But it also felt like a big step, a public declaration of their relationship on an international stage. I'll think about it, she promised. That night, after Nathan had gone home, Leah called Melissa for advice. Of course you should go, her friend exclaimed. It's Singapore, Leah, Singapore, with a man who clearly adores you. It's not that simple, Leah protested. It's a big step. And what about Gatsby? I'll watch your cat, Melissa said dismissively. What's the real reason you're hesitating? Leah sighed. I'm scared, Mel, not just of the attention or the complications. I'm scared of how much I care about him, of how easy it would be to lose myself in his world. Has he ever asked you to be anything other than yourself? Melissa challenged. No, Leah admitted. Just the opposite, actually. Then what are you really afraid of? The question lingered with Leah long after they hung up. What was she afraid of? That Nathan would eventually tire of her ordinariness, that she would never truly fit into his world of wealth and privilege, or perhaps, more honestly, that she would fit too well and lose the simple life she'd always valued. The next day at Meadowbrook, Leah was helping Mrs. Gonzalez with her latest painting when the elderly woman fixed her with a knowing look. You're troubled, dear, she said in her accented English. Is it that handsome man of yours? Leah smiled despite herself. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's lived as long as I have, Mrs. Gonzalez replied. Love is always complicated, no? We haven't said... Ah, but your eyes say it, the older woman observed. Your whole face changes when you talk about him. Leah felt heat rise to her cheeks. It's complicated, she repeated lamely. Life is complicated, Mrs. Gonzalez shrugged. Love is simple, the rest is just details. The wisdom in those words stayed with Leah throughout her shift. By the time she met Nathan for dinner that evening, she had made her decision. I'll come to Singapore, she told him, as soon as they were seated. I've already spoken to Mrs. Patel about taking 2 weeks off next month. The joy that lit up Nathan's face told her all she needed to know about whether she'd made the right choice. You won't regret it, he promised, taking her hands across the table. We'll make time for just us away from business meetings and hotel inspections. I'm going to hold you to that, she warned with a smile. There's something else, Nathan said, suddenly serious. Before we go, I want you to meet my brother. Richard's been skeptical about our relationship. He thinks it's too soon after Victoria. Leah felt a flutter of anxiety. Does his opinion matter to you? Yes and no, Nathan replied honestly. I value his perspective, but ultimately this is my life. Our life, he amended. Still, he's my only family. I'd like you two to at least meet. Then I'd like to meet him too, Leah said, though the prospect was intimidating. The dinner with Richard was scheduled for the following week at Nathan's penthouse. As Leah dressed for the occasion, she tried to quell the nerves that had been building all day. It's just dinner, she told her reflection. With the brother of the man you're falling in love with, no pressure. The realization that she was indeed falling in love with Nathan, perhaps had already fallen, hit her with surprising force. They hadn't said those words to each other yet, though the feeling had been growing between them with each passing day. Nathan met her in the lobby of his building, kissing her lightly. You look beautiful, he said, and nervous. That obvious, huh? Only to someone who's paying attention, he replied with a smile. Don't worry about Richard. His bark is worse than his bite. Upstairs, Richard was already waiting in Nathan's elegantly appointed living room, drink in hand. He was shorter than Nathan, but had the same strong features, though his expression was more guarded. Richard, this is Leah, Nathan said, his hand resting supportively on the small of her back. Leah, my brother Richard. It's nice to finally meet you, Leah said, extending her hand. Nathan speaks very highly of you. Richard shook her hand, his grip firm, but not unfriendly. Likewise, though my brother has developed a frustrating habit of keeping the important details to himself lately, Nathan shot him a warning look. Let's have a pleasant evening, shall we? Dinner was tense at first, with Richard asking pointed questions about Leah's background, her career, her relationship with Nathan. But as the meal progressed, his demeanor gradually softened, especially when the conversation turned to the art therapy program at Meadowbrook. Nathan mentioned you're an artist yourself, Richard said, as they moved back to the living room for coffee? Hardly, Leah demurred. Just a hobby. She's being modest, Nathan interjected. She's incredibly talented. Richard's expression turned thoughtful. You know, we're redesigning the interiors for the Singapore property. The lobby needs artwork. something unique with a personal touch. Would you be interested in submitting some pieces for consideration? Leah looked at him in surprise. Are you serious? Richard doesn't make offers he doesn't mean, Nathan said, equally surprised by his brother's suggestion. I am serious, Richard confirmed. From what Nathan's told me about your work with the patients, you have a gift for bringing out emotion through art. That's exactly what we're looking for. Dad, I don't know what to say, Leah stammered. Say you'll think about it, Richard suggested. No pressure, no favoritism. Your work would be judged on its merits like any other submission. Then yes, I'll definitely think about it, Leah replied, touched by the unexpected gesture. Later, as Nathan walked her to the car that would take her home, he couldn't contain his amazement. I've never seen Richard warm up to anyone that quickly, he said. He must really like you. I liked him too, Leah admitted. He clearly cares about you. He's overprotective, Nathan said. Has been since we were kids, but his approval means a lot. And if he hadn't approved? Leah asked, curious. Nathan kissed her softly. I'd still be right here walking you to this car, counting the hours until I see you again. The weeks leading up to their Singapore trip passed in a blur of preparations. Leah spent evenings at her easel, working on potential submissions for the hotel lobby, while Nathan finalized details for the resort opening. The night before their departure, Nathan surprised her by taking her to Grand Central Station after hours. The normally bustling terminal was eerily quiet, with only a few cleaning staff moving about. What are we doing here? Leah asked, confused. Nathan led her to a specific wooden bench, the same one where they'd first met that fateful night. 5 months ago, I sat on this bench at the lowest point in my life, he said, taking her hands in his. I'd just been left at the altar. I was questioning everything about my life, and I came here to hide from the world. Leah squeezed his hands, remembering that night vividly. And then you sat down beside me, he continued, his voice thick with emotion. Tired, honest kind. You shared your granola bar and your time, and somehow in the middle of one of the worst nights of my life, I found something I wasn't even looking for. Nathan, Leah whispered, feeling tears prick at her eyes. I know it's only been 5 months, he said. I know we still have a lot to figure out, but I also know, with absolute certainty, that missing that wedding was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it led me here, to you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Leah's breath caught as he opened it, to reveal not an engagement ring, but a delicate silver pendant in the shape of a bench. This isn't a proposal, he assured her, seeing her expression. It's a promise, a reminder of where we started and how far we've come. He lifted the necklace. Will you wear it? Yes, she said without hesitation, turning so he could fasten it around her neck. The pendant rested just over her heart, cool against her skin. When she turned back to face him, the words she'd been feeling for weeks finally found their voice. I love you, Nathan. His eyes softened and he cupped her face gently in his hands. I love you too, Leah, more than I ever thought possible. Their kiss echoed in the vast empty space of Grand Central, sealing a promise that had begun on that very bench months before. 1 year later, Leah stood in the magnificent lobby of the Dorian Singapore, watching as the final touches were placed on the installation of her artwork. 5 large canvases depicting scenes from New York parks throughout the seasons: Central Park in spring, Bryant Park in summer, Grand Central in autumn, and Prospect Park in winter. The 5th and central piece showed a simple wooden bench against a backdrop of city lights, with 2 silhouetted figures sitting close together. They're perfect, Nathan said, coming to stand beside her. The centerpiece of the entire hotel. I still can't believe this is happening, Leah said, leaning into him as his arm slipped around her waist. The past year had brought changes neither of them could have imagined that night at the train station. Leah had reduced her hours at Meadowbrook to part-time, allowing her to pursue her art more seriously while still overseeing the thriving therapy program. Nathan had restructured his role at Dorian Hotels, delegating more to his capable executive team so he could spend less time traveling and more time on what mattered, including his relationship with Leah. They'd found a balance between their worlds, sometimes joining the glamorous events his position required, other times enjoying the simple pleasures of her apartment with Gatsby. They spent at least one weekend a month at the cabin, where both their art studios now stood side by side, filled with light and creativity. The press had eventually lost interest in their relationship, moving on to fresher scandals, though occasionally a photographer still caught them at a restaurant or gallery opening. Leah had learned to navigate that aspect of Nathan's life with growing confidence. "Ready for the grand opening tomorrow?" Nathan asked, his thumb tracing circles on her waist. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied, "though I'm still not sure about making a speech." "You'll be amazing," he assured her, "just like you are at everything else." As they turned to leave the lobby, Richard approached, clipboard in hand. "Everything looks perfect, you two. Leah, the artwork is even more impressive installed than it was in the sketches." "Thank you, Richard," she said warmly. Their relationship had grown increasingly friendly over the past year, bonding over their shared love of art and, of course, Nathan. "Don't forget, dinner with the investors at 8, he reminded them. "And Nathan, Mother's ring is in your suite safe, as requested." Leah looked between the brothers, confused. "Mother's ring?" Richard's eyes widened as he realized his mistake. "I meant Mother's thing. Art thing. From the collection." He backed away hastily. "I should go check on the everything." Nathan sighed as his brother fled. "Subtle as always, Richard." "Nathan," Leah said slowly. "What was that about?" He took her hands, looking slightly chagrined but mostly amused. "That was about my brother ruining a surprise I've been planning for 3 months. Leah's heart began to race. "A surprise involving your mother's ring?" "Yes," Nathan admitted, "though to be fair, I wasn't planning to do this in the hotel lobby with paint crews still working around us." "Do what?" Leah asked, though she already knew the answer. Instead of replying, Nathan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, similar to the one that had held her necklace a year ago, but different. This one, when he opened it, contained a stunning sapphire ring surrounded by small diamonds. "This was my mother's," he said softly. "She made me promise I'd only give it to someone who saw the real me, not just the Dorian name." Leah felt tears welling in her eyes as Nathan dropped to one knee right there in the lobby, heedless of the workers who had stopped to watch. "Leah Morris, you saw me at my worst and somehow found something worth loving. You've brought more joy, more authenticity, more beauty into my life than I ever thought possible. Will you marry me?" Through her tears, Leah could only nod at first, overwhelmed by emotion. Then, finding her voice, she said the word that would begin the next chapter of their story. "Yes." As Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her, the workers around them broke into spontaneous applause. Leah laughed against his lips, joy bubbling up inside her. "I hope you don't mind an audience," Nathan whispered. "We seem to have a habit of significant moments in public places." "I don't mind at all," she replied, looking down at the ring sparkling on her hand. "It started on a bench in Grand Central Station. Why not continue in a hotel lobby in Singapore?" Later that evening, as they stood on the balcony of their suite overlooking the Singapore skyline, Leah rested her head on Nathan's shoulder, feeling a contentment she'd never known before. "You know what I keep thinking about?" she asked. "What's that?" "That last train I missed," she said with a smile. "If my heel hadn't broken, if my phone hadn't died, if Mrs. Winters hadn't kept me late that night, if Victoria had shown up at the church," Nathan added. "We might never have met," Leah finished. "Our whole lives might have been different." Nathan turned to face her, taking her hands in his, one now adorned with his mother's ring. "I don't believe that," he said seriously. "I think we would have found each other somehow. Some things are just meant to be." "When did you become such a romantic?" she teased. "When I fell in love with you," he replied simply. As the city lights twinkled below them, Leah thought about all the twists and turns that had brought them to this moment. A missed train, a wedding. That never happened. A chance meeting on a bench in an empty station. "I love you, Nathan Dorian," she said, kissing him softly. "And I love you, soon-to-be Leah Dorian," he replied against her lips. "With everything I am." In that moment, standing in each other's arms half a world away from where they'd begun, Leah knew with absolute certainty that missing that last train home had been the first step on a journey beyond anything she could have imagined. A journey that had led her not just to Nathan, but to a fuller, richer version of herself. And as Nathan kissed her again, more deeply this time, she wondered what other beautiful surprises might be waiting for them down the road, a road they would travel, together side by side, hand in hand from this moment forward. The end.